Hello all and welcome to our webinar Integrate and Orchestrate Data at Scale with Azure Data Factory. My name is Hassan and let me pose few questions for you. Are you a firm that handles huge amount of structured or unstructured data? Are you someone who is worried about data security? Are you confused on selecting a tool which can perform transformation at scale? Still unable to figure out how to migrate your data? If any or all of those questions are a pain point for you, then I have a good news for you. Azure Data Factory is a tool that would address all of above mentioned problems. We will have a series of webinars on this amazing tool solving different industrial pain points. Something about us. My name is Hassan. I'm working as head of data analytics practice at Royal Cyber. Something about my background. I hold a PhD degree in data analytics. I have been a para-academic for around 13 years. I have contributed to multiple projects in diverse sectors, including energy, automobile, retail, fintech, law, and telecom. Ultimately, I gained hands-on experience in big data analytics and machine learning. I have my colleague Lohit with me.
Hello everyone, my name is Lohit Doratla. I work as a data engineer at Royal Cyber. I have a total of 4 places of work experience and it is almost 2 years since I've been working with Royal Cyber. So as a data engineer at Royal Cyber, my job is to use different tools, connect to different cloud platforms. I pull data, I perform transformations on it, and then I push it to the destination location. I'm also responsible for creating data pipelines. I also have an expertise in Azure Cloud Platform. Thank you. Over to you, Hassan.
Thank you, Lohit. So, something about us. We are an organization of 1800 plus members, 10 plus location around the globe. We have very strong cloud practice, having somewhere around 250 cloud experts. Most of them are certified. We keep diverse cloud portfolio in terms of certification such as AWS, GCP, Azure, IBM. We have also a large open source practice where we work with open source tool sets to solve machine learning challenges where we can actually help you out. If you want more details, please shoot out an email to us and we'll love to tell us more about what we do. For our agenda for this webinar, we will first introduce Azure Data Factory as a tool. Then we shall talk about its key features and functional aspects and component where we have dataset, link service, activity, and pipeline. We shall then explore how ADF works and why should it be incorporated at first place for data engineering perspective. We then will shed some light on case study. Our case is related to e-commerce. Afterwards, we shall give you a fun demo and finally we will go to Q&A session. So brace yourself viewers as I give the stage to my colleague Lohit.
Thank you, Hassan. Now, what is ADF? Azure Data Factory is a big data processing platform from Microsoft on the Azure platform. ADF is often described as an orchestration tool. It is used to integrate data from different sources. So basically, it is an ETL or an ELT tool using which you can connect to different data sources. You can pull data, you can perform transformations on it, and then you can send it to the destination location. In order to do this, in order to automate the whole process, you can create pipelines, you can orchestrate it by creating jobs, and then you can have a smooth flow of data. Now, components of ADF. First one, link service. What is a link service? It is connection to some form of resource. So basically, whenever you connect to a database or a cloud service, there are some configuration parameters which are very much important. Like it could be a username, it could be a password, or it could be some other important parameter or a configuration parameter, which is very much important for you. So all these kind of information are generally stored in the link service. Second one is a data set. So it contains data source configuration parameters, a table name or file name, as well as a structure. A link service can have one or more data sets. So by data set, generally, whenever we have a data set stored in a cloud or a or a database, it is generally stored in a particular file. It is generally stored in a particular folder. So it will obviously have a file name. It will have structure to it. It will have a schema to it. And also it could be a CSV file. It could be a Parquet file, or it could be an Excel file. So all this data set related information is generally stored under a data set. Third one is activity. Data transfer, transformations, and control flow operations are all examples of activities. So once we get the data, so we perform different transformations on it. We apply some conditions on it. So all these things come under activity. Fourth one is pipelines. Pipelines are a group of actions that makes sense. Each pipeline in ADF can have one or more actions. So in this whole data migration process, there are a lot of steps involved, like from connecting to a database or a cloud platform to performing transformations and then pushing it to a destination location. There could be like 10-15 steps involved in it. It is very difficult for the user to go to each and every step and then run it. So what we do is we create a pipeline, we merge all these steps into one, and then we create a pipeline, and with a single run we can just have the output, and the user can just can just click and then enjoy. Fifth one is triggers. Pipeline scheduling configurations that contain configuration settings such as start, end dates, execution frequency, and so on. Triggers help pipelines to run automatically on a set schedule. So there are certain conditions that we can also add in the pipelines. Let's say every day at a particular time you want the pipeline to run automatically without any manual intervention. Like it could be like every day in the afternoon 2 p.m. you want the pipelines to run. So you can set up a trigger, you can set up a start date, you can set up a time, and then automatically at that particular time the pipelines will be initiated. Or it could be a condition like, let's say whenever there is data of 1 GB in your source location, you want the pipelines to run. So you can set up a trigger, you can set up a limit on the data size. Once that limit reaches, automatically the pipelines will be initiated. Now, how does it work? So it is kind of an interconnected system. There are like 5 interconnected systems in there. So first one is ingest, second one is control flow, third one is data flow, fourth one is schedule, and fifth one is monitor. So what do we mean by ingest? So ingest is nothing but you connect to different cloud platforms or different databases. So you have close to 100 plus connectors by which you can connect and then you can ingest your data. Second one is control flow. So control flow is nothing but it is an orchestration of pipeline activities. So while building your pipelines, there are a lot of parameters or there are a lot of configurations, there are a lot of variables that you need to set up in the pipeline. So all these things come under control flow. Third one is data flow. Data flow is nothing but all the transformations that you perform in the data. So all these things come under data flow. Fourth one is schedule. Once you have your pipeline setup and once you have your transformation setup, now you want this to run automatically. So you need to create jobs. So you can create jobs and then schedule it. Fifth one is monitor. So once you have your pipelines run, you obviously want to know the status of your pipelines, or you want to get some information on the pipelines that have already successfully completed their run. So you have a monitoring option in Azure Data Factory, which helps you to get that information as well. So you can easily go back and then get the information regarding your pipelines. Next one is why ADF. So there are a lot of tools which are similar to ADF, but then why do the user have to prefer ADF or other tools? Due to its job scheduling orchestration, as discussed earlier, it helps you to create pipelines, it helps you to create jobs, and then you can orchestrate the whole process, and in one go you can just run your pipeline. Second one is no code data flows. You don't need any prior coding knowledge to work on ADF. Without any coding knowledge, you can perform your transformations. Without any coding knowledge, you can build your pipelines. Without any coding knowledge, you can monitor, you can set up an alerting system as well. Next one is large collection of data connectors. So you have close to like 100 plus data connectors. So you can connect to different data warehouses, databases, or different cloud platforms. Next one is built-in monitoring and alerting system. This is one big feature as just discussed earlier. So since there are a lot of pipelines that we build, it is very difficult for the user to keep track of the status of the pipelines. And also you can have an alerted system. Let's say if you have successfully completed your pipeline, you will get a you'll get an email with an alert saying that the pipeline one has completed successfully. And let's say if there is some issue in your pipeline number two, and since there are a lot of steps in it, and in step number two there is some issue, it will immediately throw and it will immediately send you an email with an alert saying that in pipeline number two, in step number two, there is an issue. So you can immediately get into it, dig in, and then troubleshoot and then fix the issue. And it is consumption based pricing, so you can use it. You can just pay as you use it. Fifth one, and the last one is scalability. So a lot of tools that are an issue with the size of data. It becomes very difficult when you are performing some transformations on huge amount of data. So ADS also helps you with that. You can just perform your transformations at scale. Now let's get into the case study. So use case one is on e-commerce data. What is the objective and business benefits of this use case? So post-COVID, e-commerce transactions have increased significantly. Online sales in US has jumped 40% year over year in 2022. With availability of huge data, firms can find a lot of insights from it and make appropriate business decisions. The e-commerce firm is worried about how to perform transformations at scale while migrating the data, and also wants to automate the whole process. We will leverage the power of ADF to perform transformations at scale and automate the whole data movement process by creating and scheduling pipelines. So with data transformations and cloud migration, businesses can benefit in the following way: overcome compatibility issues and improve data consistency, transforming or converting data in a format that suits the destination system, increase collaboration and flexible scalability, superior disaster recovery. So generally, when we are migrating data, there is a lot of compatibility issues. So we lose that uniformity in data. So with ADF, we don't have to face this issue. Second one is transforming or converting data in a format that suits the destination system. So while we are sending the data to the destination system, we want the data to be the destination system might need the data to be in a particular format. So we can perform the transformations, and based on the requirement, we can convert it and transform it and send it. And it also helps us to perform transformations at scale, and also different teams can actually work on the same data by in ADF. And also while you are on using the on-premise databases, there's a lot of chance of losing your data. But then while you're on ADF, there's a very less chance, because you have because you're using a cloud, because the application is running on the cloud, and even if there is a loss of data, you can always recover it back. So the data scientist can in turn use the transform data and take it to the next level, like predicting trends or the next best-selling product, innovative pricing strategies for every product, implement stronger, better targeted personalization. Now let's see, like, what are the transformations that we are going to perform on the e-commerce data. This is just a diagrammatical representation of it. So we will have an e-commerce data. We'll be applying a group by on category and product columns, and then we'll have an output. We'll have a transform data as an output. The output will have a count of number of products sold under each category. And then we will be performing another transformation on the same data set. It is again an e-commerce data. This time we'll be applying a group by on state, product, and category. And then we will apply a filter condition on it, and then we will have a transformed output. So the output will have only states with the max count of products sold. This is the dataset overview. You can have the column and the description here. Column like transaction ID, transaction date, phone number, latitude, category, product, city, state, transaction type. Now let's get into the architecture that we are going to use in ADF. So our source location is a blob storage. So, and it will be interconnected to the link service, which will hold all the configuration information about the blob storage or the about the blob storage. And then which it will in turn be connected to a dataset, which will hold all the dataset related information, like whether it is a CSV file or the folder location of it or the structure of it. And then we will be performing a copy activity and different transformations in this part. So once this is done, we will again connect it to a data set, and this data set will hold all the details of a data set, which will be present in the destination location. And then this will in turn be connected to a link service, which will again hold all the information related to your destination location. And then we will finally push it to a Azure Data Lake Gen 2. And then ultimately we will have a CSV file in it. Now, let's see what are the topics that are going to be covered in the demo. So first we'll have our environment setup. In the environment setup, we'll have a blob storage account creation, Azure Data Lake Gen 2 storage account creation, creating a data set, creating link services, then a basic copy activity of e-commerce data, transfer of files from source to destination, which will include some control flow activities, creating data flows for performing transformations on e-commerce data and attaching it to a pipeline. Now, let's get into the demo. Now, since you already have an idea about the dataset and the problem statement, let's get started with the actual demo. So the first thing we need to do is create an environment for it. So in the environment creation, we'll be creating a Azure Data Factory account, a blob storage account, and Azure Data Gen 2 Data Lake Gen 2 account. Now let's see how do we create it. So this is the home page. This is the portal of Azure. You can come here, click on create a resource. You can search as Data Factory and click on Data Factory. Click on create. Now you can give your subscription. You can select the resource group. Then you can give a name to it. Then you can select the region. And then you can also select the version. You need to make sure that the name is, it's actually a fresh or a new name. So, and then you can click on next. So you can also connect it with Git. If you can see here, you can click on GitHub and then also connect with Git. But now, we will not connect with Git. So then we'll click on networking. Then you can just click on next. Just keep everything as default and then click on next. It will take a couple of minutes to deploy it, and then now you can see that the validation is passed, and then you can just make sure that the details are correct. Then you can just click on create. Yes, now you see that the deployment is complete. You can just click on go to resource. So yeah, this is the place where you can have an idea about a data factory. You can get into the documentation as well. So if you click on this, it will open a separate window with the data factory. We will click on this later. And then if you click on this, read documentation, it will take you to the documentation page where you'll have different options and different concepts covered in it. Now let's see how can we create our storage account, the blob storage. So our source location is the blob storage where we'll be having our data set. And then our destination location is nothing but the Azure Data Lake Gen 2 where we'll be transferring our files to. So click on search as storage account. Click on create. So again, same way, you can just select a subscription, select your resource group, give it a storage name. Select the region. Then for the performance, you can either select the standard or the premium. So standard comes with the magnetic hard drives, and the premium comes with, it is actually backed with the SSDs, which obviously come with a cost. So for our use case and our webinar, I'm just using the standard version. And then for redundancy, you can just select the basic one, locally redundant storage. Then just click on advanced. Then you can just have everything as default, and then you can just continue. Just need to wait for a couple of minutes so that and the deployment will be done. Just click on create. So the deployment is completed, and now we can go to the resource. So this is our resource. This is the homepage of it. So here you can have access to the blob containers or the blob storage. So click on storage browser. You can have the blob containers, you can share your files, you can create data sets, or you can upload data sets here. You can just play around with the data. You can just click on blob container. You can then click on add container so that you can create multiple folders here and then upload your data sets. Yeah. And also one more thing, you can what you can do is just for simplicity and then making things easier, you can just pin it to a dashboard. You can create a new dashboard so that you can have all your resources on the storage accounts in one dashboard, and then it will be easy for you to access it. You can just create a name for it. So now it is pinned to a dashboard. We will see that later. And then now we have created the data factory account. We have created the storage account, and that is the blob storage, that which is nothing but the source location. Now we'll create another storage account, the Azure Data Lake Gen 2, which is our destination location. So click on create. Once again, search a storage account. Then once again, click on create. So this is same as earlier. Select your subscription resource group and then give it a name. Gen 2. And then I'm again selecting standard. And then for redundancy, I'm using the locally redundant storage. And you can just click on next. So here, so for blob storage and the data lake Gen 2, there's only one difference. You just need to scroll down and then click on enable hierarchical namespace. You can see that this is for data lake storage Gen 2. Other than this, everything is same. You can just have everything as default and then click on next, review. Just click on create. Yes, it is created. Now you can just go to the resource. You will have a similar UI to the one which you've just seen earlier for the blob storage. You can come here. You can then click on containers, and then you can add containers in a similar way. You can create your own folders as well and play around with the data. So another important point to note here is the storage accounts. You click on overview. So if you see here, this is nothing but Open in Explorer. So the ones which you just seen, I mean, how do we create the containers? So we can have a separate version of it, the desktop version. So which is very easy for you to handle and then create your data sets and handle them. So once you download it, you can just download the Azure Storage Explorer. Then you'll have a desktop version of it. So it will look something like this. You can just come here and then you will have all the storage accounts which you have created, and then you can access your data sets from here. And you can also upload files here. You can also delete them and then play around with the data sets here as well. So this will be much easier for you to handle the data and get different options from it. So now we'll also pin this to our dashboard. So this is a dashboard pin. Yes. So now we have created all the three accounts. So I already created a dashboard. I've already set up a storage account earlier, which we'll be using now. So this is the storage account and the dashboard. Let me show you. Yeah. So you can see this is my webinar storage account. So you can see this is my data factory. This is my blob storage, which is nothing but the source location. And then this is my destination location, the Azure Data Lake Gen 2. This is my dashboard, and under this I have all these three accounts. or the resources. So now we are pretty much done. Now let's get into the actual implementation of it. So for that, you need to click on Open Azure Data Factory. So now we're at the homepage of Azure Data Factory. So first I'll give you an overview of different options available in the Data Factory, and then we can start with the actual implementations. So then this is the homepage, and click on Author. So now this is where you can create your pipelines, create your data sets, then create your data flows. Data flows are nothing but the different operations or transformations you perform on the data set. Now let's get into the monitor option. So under monitor, first option is pipeline runs. So this will give you all the information related to your pipelines, the different pipeline runs which you have already done the previous ones. Second option is trigger runs. So all the trigger runs related information is available here. You can click on integration runtime. So this is where you can have information related to the Spark cluster. And then alerts and metrics. So if and when you create different alerts, so all the alert related information is shown over here. And the next one is manage. You can click on link service. This is where you can create a new link service, and all the link services related information is available here. And then click on Git configuration. So if and when you want to connect to your Git repository, you can click on configure and then connect to it. And then triggers. You can create different triggers and customize it over here. So now let's get started with the actual implementation. So first we need to create a linkage service. Linkage service is nothing but a connection to either a database or a cloud service. So I've already created my link services. I'll just show you on how to create it. You can click on new. So let's say our source location or a source location is nothing but a blob storage. So for that, I can just search as Azure Blob Storage. Click on Blob Storage. Click on Continue. So give a name to it. Add some description to it, and then you can just connect it with your cluster. And then there are two different ways that you can connect to your database or the cloud service. So one is through your subscription, or you can enter details manually. Since I already have a subscription, I can just click on here and then click on my subscription. So automatically all the details related to the my link service will be given here. And then, so once you've created your storage accounts, so since you've already seen on how to create the storage accounts, you can click on storage account and then you can select the appropriate ones. And then you can just have everything as default and then click on create. Since I've already created, I'll be using the, those ones. So now we have seen how to create the linkage service. Now let's check on how to create the data set. So you can come here, click on datasets, click on new dataset. So again, since our source location is a blob storage, you can click on blob storage. So you can have different file formats. You can have JSON or CSV or a Parquet file or a delimited text. Since ours is a delimited text, I'm just clicking on delimited text. So you can just click on continue, and then you can give it a name, and then you need to connect it to a linkage service. Obviously, because the data set is connected to a linkage service, so you need to select once. Since I've already created my data sets ready here. So the first activity that I'm going to do is a basic copy activity wherein I'll be transferring files from a source location to a destination location. So for that, we need to build a very basic pipeline. You can just click on pipelines and then click on new pipeline. Now this is the one which I've already created. And this activity I'm going to perform on the e-commerce dataset. And so now you can see there are different activities available here. So you can click on move and transfer copy activity or a data flow, and then click on general. So most of the activities that you'll be accessing or using is generally are under general. So there are different activities like get metadata, lookup, script, set variable, validation activity. Yeah. So here I'll be using the first activity that I'm going to perform is nothing but the validation activity. You can just click on validation, drag it, and then drop it here. So what does this validation activity do? So generally, In order to transfer data, first we need to make sure that the data set is available in the source location. For that, we'll be using a validation activity. So what this box will do is it will go and hit your source location, and then it will check whether this data set exists or not. And then it will tell us, yes, whether it is existing or not. So you can come to general and then give it a name and then click on settings. You need to connect it to a data set. And then this is timeout and sleep. So there's nothing but an interval kind of a thing for, you can just mention it. Let's say if it is 20. So for every 20 seconds for the next 2 minutes, it will go and hit your database and it'll keep checking whether the data set is existing or not. Yeah. So once we know that the data set is available, the second activity that I'm going to perform is nothing but the get metadata activity. So for get metadata activity, we can again come to general, click on click on get metadata activity, and then drag and drop it here. So what does metadata mean? So in general, metadata is nothing but the information about your data set. So it could be the size of your data, number of columns available in it, or it could be the schema of it, or it could be the names of your columns. So why am I using this? So with the get metadata activity, I can make sure that the data set which I'm transferring to the destination location is the valid one or the one which I'm actually looking for. There may be a situation wherein there are multiple data sets in the source location, and then I might not know whether I'm sending or transferring the correct one or not. So if I can get the metadata of it, then I can make sure that yes, I can I can guarantee and then make sure that I'm transferring the right data set. So in a similar way, you can just give a name to it. You can just again give a timeout or an interval to it. You can come to settings, click on dataset, and then you can actually add multiple arguments in it. It is like column count, item name, or the size of the data set. Different things like, or you can also customize it. But then for our use case, I'm only using the column count of it. So now, once I get the column count of it, now since I already know that my data set has 9 columns, and then once I get the output of the get file metadata activity, the column count of it, and then I can compare, and then I can be sure that, yeah, this is the right data set. I can proceed to the next step and then transfer data. In the third step, I'll be using a if-else condition, a control statement or if-else condition. You can get down to the iteration and conditions. Then come here. Yeah. So you have the if condition here. Click on it and then drag and drop it. So why am I using this? So there's a condition which I'm giving here. So let's say if the output of my get my file metadata, the column count is 9. So now since I already know that the my column count is 9, I can compare it, and now I'm sure that yes, this is the right data set. I can transfer it. So if it is true, if it is 9, then I'll go to true. I'll copy my data to the destination location. Yes. Now, if it is false, if the column count is not 9 or it is like 10, 11, or 12, I'll send an email or an intimation kind of a message to the to the either the manager or myself. I can just add a different mail to it, or I can give a different alert to them saying that this is not the data set. So there is an issue, and then you cannot transfer the data. You can just give a name to it. You can come on settings. You can either give a URL, or you can add some different this is the body of it. So you can just give an email, and then you can transfer it. You can just transfer the message to the appropriate person, and then make sure that that the transfer is not happening because there's an issue with the column count. Yeah. So now, since we have our pipeline built, we need to run the pipeline to get the output to see whether the files are transferring or not. You click on validate. So if there are any errors, it will be shown here. Once it is fine, we can go ahead with debug. Now it will just take some time to transfer the data. So once it is transferred, you can come to Storage Explorer, and then you will have the output here. So this is my storage location, and this is the folder. And here you'll see the data set being transferred once all the conditions are met. So now you can see this is the first step. So now you can see The first step, check file exists, is succeeded. You can see the output here. You can see that whether the file exists, it is true. The second step, so once this is true, it will go to the get file metadata. You will get the column count, and then you can see that the column count is 9. So let's wait for the third step to finish. Yes, now you can see that the third step is also finished and the fourth step as well. So now since we have the output as 9, it will go to if count matches, if column count matches. Since it is successful, we can see the details of the transfer activity. Now this is the blob storage. This is nothing but a source location. This is our destination location. Now you can see there was one file which is read. This is the duration which is has taken for the whole activity to be performed. In this way, you can get the information. Now let's check whether the file is transferred or not. Yes, now you can see that the data set has been transferred from the source to destination location. In this way, you can perform a very basic copy activity, and then you can have some control flow activities, and then make sure that if everything goes well, you transfer the data. If not, you can send an alert or a message to your manager or yourself saying that there is some issue and then the transfer couldn't happen. Now let's get into the second use case where I'll be performing some transformations on the data set. So for that, we need to come to data flows, click on data flow. You can just click on new data flow. So since I've already created my data flows, yeah. So I'll be performing some transformations on the e-commerce data set. So this is the place where I'll be transferring, or I'll be performing some transformations on it. So you can you'll find a page something like this. So the first step, you'll land here, and then first thing you need to give a name to this stream. I have just given it as e-commerce source 1, and then you need to select your data set in a similar way which I've seen earlier. Yeah, and then you can just click, you can check or uncheck this allow schema drift. This is nothing but if there are any changes to the incoming data, whether you want that to reflect on the destination location as well or not. So if you just click on it, you're giving consent that you want to allow these schema changes as well. If not, you can just uncheck it. And then you can come to the source options. You can just leave it as is. And come to the projection. So this is where you can see this is the these are the column names, and then this is nothing but the data types. By default, most of it will be under string. So if you want to change, you can just change it here. Then you can get into the optimal. This is very important option. So basically, since you are running it on a Spark cluster, your data set is generally divided into multiple nodes. So if you click on current partitioning, so Azure Data Factory by default it will tell the number of nodes that it needs based on our data set. So if you want, you can click on single partition as well. So in that case, it will actually select or handle all your data on a single single node. And then set partitioning. So this is like you can select a different kind of a partition based on your knowledge. So you have different options here. You can just select the number of partitions. So for our use case, I'm just using the current partitioning. And then inspect. So let's say if you've made any changes in your data types, and then you can just have a final look of it. So you can see that all our strings, since we have put everything as default. Now you can come to the preview. Yeah. Click on refresh. It will just take some time for you to show the data set. Yeah. Now you can see the data set here. These are the different columns and information. So now let's get started with the actual transformations. So the first step that I'm going to do is I'll be applying a group by function on the columns category and product. For that, and just click on plus over here. So there are different functions available here. You can perform join, you can perform conditional split, you can create a new column, you can apply a select function, aggregate functions. There are different options. So I'm going to do an aggregate function because it's a group by. So click on aggregate. So it will open another window. You'll land it. So you'll land over here. So this is the output stream. This is nothing but the name given to this particular box. Incoming stream is nothing but the previous step which I've performed. And then you can come here on group by. So here you need to select the columns on which you want to perform the group by. So for me, since I'm going to use the category and the product function, product columns, so I'll use these two columns on which I want to perform the group by. And then I can come to aggregates. And then here I need to specify the function that I want to perform on the columns. And click here, I can click on Open Expression Builder, can come here. So what I want to do, so since I've applied a group by on category and product, now I want to get the count of product. So here you can also see there are different options or different expressions or functions available. So there are n number of functions, and you can also use a customized function. You can just write your own customized function here. So I want to get the count of product. You can click on save and finish. Now, in a similar way, we have an optimize option here. We can again click on inspect to check our the data types, and then you can have the data preview. Yes. So now you can see we have a category column, a product column, and a count of it. So for exercise and fitness, cardio machine accessories. So we have 5 items of cardio machine accessories sold under exercise and fitness. So you can again see here, this is exercise and fitness, but under this category, we have some other product as well, weightlifting gloves, which are sold 10. So I'll just sort it so it will be easy for us. So you can see under jumping, pogo sticks, 15 count of it. Yeah. So now, since we have performed our operations, now we need to transfer the data to the destination location. For that, we will come to the plus symbol over here again. You can just click on plus. You can click on sync. Sync is nothing but a destination location. So yeah, and come over here. So you can just give a name to it. You can just give the incoming stream. You can just click on the data set, click on the data set, and then come to the settings. So this is one option which you need to be aware of. So by default, the Spark saves your data set into multiple files. Let's say if there are 10 rows. So by default, it may save the data set into multiple files, like 2 or 3 or 4 files, like 2 rows of 2 rows in one file, 2 rows in one file. So for now, for our data, for our web, for our use case, I'm just selecting output to a single file. And then we need to give the output name. Output name is nothing but the data set name which we want to be saved in the destination location. And then for the final time, we can just have a look at the data. Now you can see the data. So now this is the final output. We will be transferring this file to the destination location. Now we'll be applying another operation. So we'll have 2 different outputs from this particular operation. So this is the first operation which I've performed. The second operation, I'll be also using a state column in it. Earlier, we had just used a category and product on which I performed a group by. Now I'll also use state on which I'll be performing a group by. So we can just come to this particular box. You can just select your data set and give a name to it. Then you can come to the source option. You can just have it as is. And this is nothing but a data preview of it. Now, what am I doing here? So in a similar way, I'm using an aggregate function. So here I'm also including state in here this time. So state, category, and product. I can just come to aggregates, and then I can click on Open Expression Builder, count of product. Then I can just save and finish. And now if you have a look at the data, we'll have a data set wherein we'll be applying a group by on state, category, and product, and then we'll have count as the output. Yeah. So now I'll just sort it. And now you can see under state California, under category gymnastics, so 3 vaulting horses were sold. So in this way, we can have multiple columns in the group by as well. Now, since we have this output, in the next step, I'll be applying a filter condition where I'll be adding condition wherein I will say that wherever the count is 3, I only want those states. So how do we do it? Let's check it. So again, you can just click on plus. Now you can just come down and then click on filter. Yeah. So you will have a page like this. You can just give your output stream name, incoming street name, and just click on Open Expression Builder. So now since I only want all the states with count equal to 3, I can just give it a very basic count equal to 3. And from here, I can have an output like this. Yes. So now you can see I only have states where the product count is equal to 3. Now, since we are done, we can just click on plus, connect it to a sink, and then load it to a destination location. In a similar way, we can just give a name to it, and then we can run our pipelines. Now, let's say if you made some changes, the first thing that you need to do is you need to publish it so that whatever changes you have done will be saved. Else, let's say if there is some issue, you don't publish it, all the changes made will not be saved. So for this data flow to be run, you need to again come to a pipeline. Without a pipeline, you cannot run the data flows. So this is the data flow which I've created. Now I can first click on validate and then check whether there are any errors. So there is no error. Now we can click on debug. Now the pipeline process has started. So once the pipeline process is finished, we will see the output in this folder, which I've already created. Yes. So now the pipeline is successful. You can see. So we had performed two different activities. On the first one, this is the data set. And then we had applied a group by on category and product. And this is the output. So this is again the data set. We had applied an aggregate function. And then we had applied a filter on it. And then we had sent it to the destination location. So you can see here, there are two different destination locations and both of them are successful. Now let's see whether the data set is available in the destination location. You can just click on storage browser, click on refresh. Now we can see there are two different output files available for two different operations which we have performed. I'm pretty much done with the demo. Thank you everyone for taking out time and joining this webinar.
Thank you, Lohit. This was a wonderful demo. I myself learned a lot about ADF. For our viewers, we have an exclusive offer. If you wish to migrate to ADF or already working with ADF and you would like to have a consultation regarding it, then we offer a jumpstart call free of cost where we shall understand your business requirements to gap analysis and would recommend a tailored solution for your problem. And now we shall take questions from our audience.